So my house.
Yeah, and I'm the host. Hi, Steve. Chelsea's house was locked up, so
I can't hear you, Laura.
Uh-oh.
Can't hear me either, huh?
Okay, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
I was saying Chelsea's house for some reason is all locked up, so I'm on Zoom. So I go through this meeting as quickly as possible because I'm in somebody's house. I'm not where I belong, like this hour.
Is there a sign on the door for people who show up?
It's just all locked up. No, not here, Dave. Steve was referring to the South Seas house. I didn't have
Yes,
anything with me to put said sign on the door.
I see. Okay.
So let's just do this as efficiently as we can. And Teresa's not coming, so
Right. And there's the famous Rosie.
so anyway. Hi everybody. So I hope nobody tried to go into the South Seas house for reasons unclear. It's locked up. But oops, yeah. But I therefore I'm in a geographic location that I can't stay all the way till 9 at. So I'm on Zoom. So I'm hopefully we'll have a pretty quick meeting. And
Excellent. Quick is good.
as I understand, and to that end, I think I will just call it to order, even though my usual pattern is to wait till 7:05. But calling this meeting to order at 7:02. My name is Laura Myers, and this is the Planning and Zoning Committee of United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council, and I am going to share the screen with the agenda for tonight. And basically say, as we always do, welcome. This is our call to order. Can you see the shared screen?
Looks great.
And so we're going to review quickly the UNNC standing rules for committee stakeholder voting participation. And those rules are basically UNNC appoints chairs of committees or co-chairs or subcommittee chairs of the committee. But what we don't do is appoint committee members. And as a result, what we're doing is saying that any stakeholder who is present at a committee meeting is welcome to participate fully, but also to make motions and to vote. What we vote on are recommendations to our governing board, so these are not final decisions. What is a stakeholder? It's someone who lives, whether they're the owner of a property or a renter, someone who lives within UNNC, has a business in UNNC, attends school, attends church, owns a property, whether or not they live within UNNC, but they own a property in UNNC, boundaries and or participate in a nonprofit 501c3 community-based organization with an address, a bricks and mortar address within the UNNC boundaries. So going quickly, don't think we need to, with the five of us who are here now, you can just introduce yourself, but I see that you're all stakeholders. So again, I'm Laura Myers. I live in Angeles Vista. Steve, you're showing as if you are Marina.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have a better life that way. So I'm Steve Peckman. That's my wife's name, Marina, down there. And I am a resident of Jefferson Park for about 20 years. I'm a stakeholder and will vote if there's something to vote on.
Okay. Siobhan?
Hey, I'm Siobhan O'Neill Schwenk. I'm up in Western Heights, UNNC 4, I think.
And you're a stakeholder, and you might vote on.
Yes, I'm a stakeholder, and I may vote on something if there's something to vote for.
Okay. Hi, Rosie. How are you?
Hi, I'm pretty good. My name is Rosie Brown. I live in Jefferson Park. I am a stakeholder, and I'll be voting if there's something to vote on.
Okay, and Ever. How do I pronounce it? Please keep reminding me.
Hello, my name is Eber Martinez. I live in Jefferson Park, and I am a stakeholder and will be voting if there's something to vote on.
Okay, and we were just joined, I believe, by one more person. I'm losing the meeting. Okay, sorry about this. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the share and start it all over again. And Christina just arrived. Christina, we were all just introducing ourselves and stating whether or not we are stakeholders.
Hi, everyone. This is a new meeting for me. I haven't joined yet. So I'm Christina. What do you mean by, could you just clarify what stakeholder means? Sorry, I'm new.
I will state it again. A stakeholder to UNNC is someone who lives, works, attends school, attends church, owns property within the boundaries of UNNC, and or participates in a community-based nonprofit organization, 501c3, which has a bricks and mortar address within the boundaries of UNNC. And those boundaries are basically Pico to Exposition, Crenshaw on the west, and then a zigzag western Normandy, western Arlington.
Yes, I live in that area. I live in H Pause.
Okay. So then we say, because you missed everything, and will you vote? You don't know if you're going to vote, but you have the right to vote because you are a stakeholder. Okay.
Thanks for clarifying that.
And Donna Jones, and then we're going to move on. You want to introduce yourself? If you can. And if not, I'm going to go back to the share screen, put the Planning and Zoning Committee agenda back up on the screen. And so for tonight, we're going to run through this rather quickly, and that is because unexpectedly our in-person meeting room was locked up, so we're doing this all on Zoom. But I don't know about the rest of you, but I am basically at a location doing the Zoom that I can't stay late into the night. So we're going to hopefully have a very efficient meeting. So after we've done what we just did, we have general public comments, an ED1 update that Steve will talk about. We're going to review a proposed comment letter regarding the Expo Crenshaw Mobility Hub project. Both of these two letters are on tomorrow night's governing board agenda, so these are voting matters where we will make a recommendation to the governing board. And if we have time, and we probably do, have a quick update regarding the housing element chip plan and any follow-up to previous cases. And I think we do have one of those as well. And I'm going to stop the share. And so does anybody have any general public comments on any matter not on tonight's agenda? Rosie.
Yes. Good afternoon. I just want to have people aware of this program. I never heard of it. It's called a proactive code enforcement, and they call it PACE, which basically is confusing with the PACE program that they already have. It's some type of program with building and safety where they are going around in neighborhoods, noticing homeowners about quote unquote visual blight. And when they send the initial letter to you, they don't give you any information about what code it is or anything about the program or when they're going to come back out to inspect. But then when you don't come out in the time that you didn't even know you had, they send you another letter that's all fancified, order to comply with all these different codes on it and all these fines, 600, 900,000, lien on your property to you and tell you have 30 days to get this done. So I would like this to be added. I don't know how we could to UNNC so they can look into it and understand what this program is and why is it not being administered in really a correct way.
Well, transparent. Well, the PACE program, I thought it died because it was so filled with unequal. I mean, they were going after senior citizens who had clutter on their front porches, which is, a lot of us, and no means to rectify it. So I thought this program had died a death. And so is Jefferson Park being paced again?
I guess the person I spoke to, he says that he's been giving citations out in Jefferson Park and on Olympic ever, and I'm like, I don't know. It just.
Rosie, will you send me? Can you just send me that information?
Sure.
Information to me, and I will ask CD10 to look into it because the program was killed for a good reason, which was it was basically going after the people who have the least means to comply.
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Any other general public comments? Okay, none. So we're going to move on to item 3. Forgive me, I'm going to take a look at the printed agenda so I can not have to keep pulling it up. Steve, that would be your item, correct?
Yeah. So yes, thank you.
Do you want me to pull up your letter or do you want me to
No, I'll do it. I'll do it if you allow me to share screen, please.
I can do that.
So just as a brief introduction, this topic was discussed during our last meeting, and the committee voted unanimously to support the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council's position regarding the construction of a huge building within the Windsor Village HPOZ. And so I was tasked with following up and writing a letter to that effect to the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. I will share some information so that people remember what we were talking about. So I'm going to skip over some things. This is a building in our own neighborhood in Jefferson Park that was recently approved by planning that you can see is greatly out of scale and massing with the local neighborhood. This is the building in the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council District, Windsor Village HPOZ, 6 stories in a 1 and 2 story neighborhood within the HPOZ. It's 100% affordable. The building line setbacks are very narrow. There's no parking. 100% reduction from standard requirements for open space, and the property already has a Q condition on it, which typically limits use or development to protect the surrounding neighborhood, in this case, HPOZ, which is not being protected by this approval. So the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council met on March 13th and discussed the proposal. And what they decided was they were going to ask planning to resolve a number of issues related to the project, including inconsistencies in the letters, neighborhood concerns regarding the height, setbacks, building line, dedications, trees, etc., and the non-compliance with the Q zoning condition. So the neighborhood council voted 18 in favor. I'm sorry, 18 were there, 13 voted in favor. And they sent a letter then 3 days later to the planning department, the representative Ricardo Vasquez, to Kevin Keller, the mayor's interim deputy mayor for housing, and to CD5 staff, that's Katie Yaroslavsky's council district. And then in August of this year, there was a lawsuit filed against the city by the neighbors in the HPOZ asking for a writ of mandate. A writ of mandate is asking the judge to overrule planning and order planning to re-review the case consistent with the HPOZ guidelines and the Q zoning, etc. So we recommended 2 weeks ago, recommend to the United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council Governing Board that the UNNC absolutely supports affordable housing. The concerns of the Planning and Zoning Committee are consistent with those of other neighborhood councils, and that CD10 includes 7 HPOZs, almost a quarter of the total city HPOZs, and that the planning approval sets a precedent that can be extended to and threatens the CD10 HPOZs, which are listed here. 4 of which of these HPOZs in red are within the UNNC boundary. So HPOZs in LA account for less than 3% of all buildings in the city. So therefore, they're a very minor share of the buildings that could be considered for ED1. And affordable housing is not because of the lack of affordable housing is not because of HPOZs and should not be solved by destroying HPOZs. It's interesting, the mayor's executive directive, which is allowing this kind of building, even in HPOZs, was originally signed December 16th, 2022. It's been revised 3 times. What we found in terms of examining the data provided to us is that more than 50% of approved ED1 projects, that's between December 2022 and July 24, are in 11% of the 35 community plan areas. So 11% of the community plan areas within the total city have now had approved more than 50% of these projects. Those plan areas include South LA, Southeast LA, West Adams, Baldwin Hills, Lamert, and Wilshire. The 4 community plan areas are already burdened by some of the greatest population density in the city and are carrying a disproportionate burden of ED1 projects. And ED1 projects should be more equitably distributed across the city. And so the recommendation is, again, the Planning and Zoning Committee recommends to the Governing Board that it provide a letter of support to the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council supporting the Windsor Village neighborhood's position on the proposed project. I will now share the letter. So that's kind of a basic overview. Any questions while I'm sharing the letter? Finding the letter to share?
Well, not a question, but just a comment. When we look also at those statistics, just for everybody's edification, 2 weeks ago, we also realized that these ED1 projects, less than 10% of the units, the ED1 units approved in South LA are actually for extremely low income or very low income people. So 91% were for individuals or households, but individuals whose income begins at $75,000 a year and up. So this is not what most of us think of when we think of affordable housing that should be awarded unlimited incentives and benefits.
Right.
Okay.
An important point. So this is a draft of the letter. It essentially outlines what I just described. That's a letter to the Neighborhood Council in Greater Wilshire in support of their March 13th letter to planning, outlines some of the data I just described. And this isn't really a request, so I need to change this. It's just a letter of support. But that our neighborhood council voted to approve the motion. I'm hoping tomorrow.
your language is fine. Our motion is to support your letter. That letter requests the above referenced project not be approved. You did it right.
Okay. And then
We're all tired.
yeah, I certainly am. And so then this is the quote from the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council letter. This is the background I just described about HPOZs, the community plan areas. The letter talks about architecture and respect. The above referenced project should be planned and constructed in a responsible fashion that demonstrates respect for the intended residents and the neighbors, resulting in improved quality of life for everyone. Such respect includes compliance with the letter and intent of the LA Municipal Code HPOZ ordinance and the Windsor Village HPOZ preservation plan. There's a picture of the building. And then finally, ED1 does not allow rezoning. The approved project does not meet the standards of the Q zoning designation of the property. ED1 restricts ministerial review to cases that do not require a zoning change. Therefore, ministerial review was in error, and the planning department should require compliance with the Q zoning designation, which requires protection of the surrounding HPOZ neighborhood, ensuring the development is compatible with the general plan, and prevention or reduction of negative environmental impacts. UNNC has a strong history of supporting affordable housing proposals within and adjacent to our footprint. We have voted to approve literally thousands of affordable units. To reiterate, we are totally in favor of affordable housing. We support it, but it should be housing that complies with the objective standards indicated in the LA Municipal Code and the Windsor Village Preservation Plan. And it's signed by the president of UNNC, and I suggest that we CC Kevin Keller, the interim deputy mayor of housing, Heather Hutt and her staff in CD10, just as an FYI that we are doing this. And then Laura, of course, as UNNC VP and chair of the Planning and Zoning Committee, and Richard Hoffman, who's the resident that brought this to our attention in the Windsor Village HPOZ. Any questions, comments, or concerns? There are some typos here I need to correct, so I'll send you if there's nothing to change of substance tonight, I'll send you a revised version, Laura.
Sure. Are there any questions, comments?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Is that Rosie? Was that a yes or a no?
Oh yeah, I was like, yes, wonderful. Yeah, taking over
Thank you,
our
Rosie.
neighborhoods with these huge, gigantic, enormous buildings.
Well, yeah, so you do know some huge, gigantic, enormous buildings will be getting approved over time, but at least they go through an approval process.
Right. They want to be ran through and said yes.
Ones, are being treated as what's called ministerial. So, and some of them are really difficult to swallow, and some have been okay, actually.
Yes. And of course, I would totally support a project of this nature along a major boulevard where the size and massing and scale would be consistent with existing on a major boulevard. Putting it in the middle of an HPOZ like the one at Jefferson and Arlington that was just recently approved, that was the first slide, to me is inappropriate. There's a lot of place for building of this type within the city in order to achieve the goals, the housing goals of both the city and the state.
Okay, well, and again, we're going to have a future discussion when we can get some more statistics. We're looking to flush out those statistics we referred to. So that's a discussion for another day. But I think
so that's my motion, is to recommend that the board send this letter to the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council.
So approve the letter and send it to the.
Yes.
Okay. And is there a second?
I second.
Okay. And again, so everyone here is a stakeholder, so you may vote. So how do you vote on Zoom? You ideally, you raise your little digital hand if you know how to do that, or you turn on your screen and you raise, like this, you raise your hand. So all in favor, either raise your digital hand or but not both. You've just raised both. Anyway, okay. Motion is passing we have one non-voter. Christina, are you not voting or are you voting no?
I'm not voting because I don't feel properly educated on this right now. So
Okay, that's fine. You don't have to explain. I just, for the record, we have one abstention. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Now, the next item on the agenda is another letter, and I am, give me a moment. I'm going to try and find it. There we go. So, are you guys able to see the screen? That's a yes? Okay, so this is a completely different letter. We also discussed its contents, but we didn't write it at the meeting 2 weeks ago. So UNNC received a letter from Ray Tellis, who's the regional administrator for the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Transit Administration, the FTA, regarding a Section 106 consultation for the Expo Crenshaw Mobility Hub project. So a Section 106 consultation or review is when federal funds are being put into a local or federal project. So it's a different kind of CEQA. It's not CEQA, but it's a different kind of environmental review. So they asked us if we had any comments about, any historical properties that might be impacted or any other sort of environmental concerns. What is the Expo Crenshaw Mobility Hub, you might ask? And the answer is that it is, you know where Expo and Crenshaw is. It's essentially one of the implementations of the first mile, last mile strategic plan that was created around basically enhancing the pedestrian and multimodal experience for getting people to the train station. So people walk, they ride their bikes, they might take a scooter, so the different modalities. And this particular project is to make that experience nicer, I guess best way to say it, in time for the Olympics. So that's the goal, and they're actually doing funding 6 of these projects. So for our letter, we're writing, we're pleased that this will be completed in time for the 2028 Olympics. We recognize.
Laura,
what?
I don't know if you intended to have the letter up, but right now we're only seeing the list of items in your menu.
Okay, so let me try this again. I'll do it a different way. Sorry, I did intend to have the letter up. So I'll share it a different way. So it's embarrassing. You could have told me a little bit earlier, but thank you. All right, now can you see the letter?
Yes.
Okay, so great. So again, we're addressing it to Ray Tellis, Mary Wynn, and over at Metro, a woman named Meghna Khanna. And so we're thanking them for reaching out. We're happy that this will be done by 2028. We recognize that the Section 106 review is primarily interested in potential impacts to historic properties and cultural properties, but that we can voice other concerns regarding anything environmental. And so question number 1 is, since it's part of the first mile, last mile strategic plan, the actual project only covers 0.2, so 0.2 miles north and south and 0.3 miles east and west. So they're not funding it in that first mile, last mile distance. So we don't know if there's any other projects on the horizon. So in terms of eligible historic properties.
So Laura, that paragraph, is the implication there that they're piecemealing the project?
No, the implication is that it's kind of insufficient.
Okay.
In other words, what happened to the other half miles around,
Right. Okay.
Right. So if I need to say that better, let me know.
No, I just wanted to clarify for myself.
Okay, so essentially there are, as we discussed last time, we couldn't think of any historical properties in this small little radius. And if you go out the 1 mile, you can add the Kokosai Theater and the former Grace Pastries, which is on Jefferson, just a smidge east of Crenshaw, and the Kokosai is just a smidge, and Crenshaw just a smidge north of Jefferson. Neither one would be negatively impacted by this project, but they will ask us to identify properties. So the descriptions here are just from the city's own, basically Historic Places LA database. So I didn't write those descriptions. And however, as again discussed last week or 2 weeks ago, we would like to draw your attention to several other areas of concern. One, regarding the proposal to have new information kiosks and wayfinding sign elements. We've had over the years numerous public discussions about how to best give both visitors and residents more information about this area's rich cultural tapestry and the layers of history in the community. And one idea that was actually incorporated into the Crenshaw Streetscape Plan was to create some gateway signage about the various distinct neighborhoods that make up the larger community, bounding Crenshaw. And that's actually part of the Streetscape Plan. Will it ever be implemented? I don't know. And the other idea that we have talked about so many times is to have, the generic, what they call information kiosks, but that these kiosks provide historic and cultural information about the neighborhood along the lines of longstanding the Angel Throne project that's in various places around town. So that's that paragraph. And then we move on to trees, that we're a little uneasy. Maybe I shouldn't use the word also. We're uneasy is somewhat uneasy about the trees component of this proposal. And this is what we talked about most at the last meeting. UNNC is engaged in robust advocacy over many years regarding the planting of and the maintenance of our tree canopy. We talked to developers about it. We talked to other agencies, including Metro, about this. But despite our efforts, when the city conducted a survey of the tree canopy in all neighborhood councils in the city a couple of years back, we did not perform that well. Our canopy is only 15% of the total possible canopy. And this is not your backyard trees. This is like, right of way on the parkways or in the parks themselves, but just trees that are in effect public trees. We're basically one of the most tree poor communities in the city. We're not the worst, but we're nowhere close to the best. So the project says that, the description says that the project will include planting of drought-resistant shade trees along Crenshaw Boulevard, Exposition Boulevard, and Obama Boulevard. And so first, the environmentally superior alternative is to plant native trees, not just drought-resistant, to promote biodiversity and as well to help ensure survivability. And I'm sorry, this is what kept it in word. Help ensure survivability, and not just the phrase drought resistant, but rather climate adapted trees are preferable. And that came from Teresa, who is our tree lady.
So Laura, here, do you want to say survivability and durability?
Sure.
Or is that the same thing?
I don't think so. It can be durable but dead, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think the word that's usually used is hardy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is in relation to trees and generalized botanical cover.
Okay, so where would I do that?
Survivability and hardiness.
Hardiness. Fine. Good. Okay. And as Teresa pointed out, I guess what the urban forestry department says is climate adapted trees, not just drought resistant. And then second, that the decision makers, which would be in this case federal government, should be presented with an alternative that that includes 5 years of establishment care. So that again, that's what we call watering and maintenance. And just as a side note, not putting it in the letter, but the current LA requirements for planting a street tree, the theoretical requirements, is that it be watered 33 times each year on a schedule, and that it be for 5 years. So when we first started planting trees, it was 1 year, then 2, then 3, but now the requirements are 5 because the climate change has been so dramatic. Okay, so third, the portion of the project's trees, a portion of the project's tree location, trees location, which is what they call it. It already has mature planted trees. So clearly the planting area, sorry, very tired. Clearly the planting area should be expanded to include unplanted parkways, because a lot of what they're showing on their little map, which is in our agenda packet, is already planted up. So we don't want to remove trees, clearly. Also, the schematic does not even show the trees going all the way north to Jefferson. The part that's not planted is the part on both sides of Jefferson would be both sides of Crenshaw would be the last 150 feet, 125 feet south of Jefferson. So, as you go north, once you hit the gas station on the east side and the little shopping center on the west side, there are no trees. And that they seem to have stopped their red line because they're out of money for trees, but they're not realizing there's already trees south of that. So, and then on the other hand, the project apparently includes parkway sections that abut the Metro Joint Development Crenshaw Crossing project. So that project, this project is to be done in 2028. So plant the tree starting next year. The Crenshaw Crossing doesn't start construction until 2026 or 2027 at this point. So that could result in the planting of trees on Crenshaw between Obama and Expo that could then be damaged by the construction of Crenshaw Crossing itself. So that makes no sense. And in addition, Crenshaw Crossing is already mandated to plant 157 new trees on its site and in the right of way. They, in fact, are mandated to plant more trees than they have room for. I didn't put that there. So we had already started a conversation that they were resisting about what about planting some of the trees on Crenshaw or Obama, in other words, still beyond your project site, and they were resisting that. But they need to plant 157 trees based on the removal of a few number of trees plus the number of units that they're building. So it didn't seem to us when we were discussing this 2 weeks ago that this federally funded project, that it would be appropriate for it to plant their trees, their required trees. But, if they're funding trees to be planted, we want those trees to go out farther so that we get all the trees and not have, I didn't write this, but not have a shell game of who's planting the trees. So I didn't think it would be good to write the word shell game, but because we're trying to be polite. Oh, I did write the word shell game. So you can tell me, should I remove that because it's not polite? What do you guys think?
Works for me.
Well, I know, but I mean, is it too, get right there? Is it too mean?
No, but this is me you're talking to.
I agree with Siobhan. I'm sorry.
I'm a big old meanie.
Oh, well, I'm just tired. I didn't even remember I actually put it in because I was thinking I had never put that in because it doesn't seem right. Okay, I'm going to leave it in and let the board decide, unless you guys decide you don't want it in.
That looks good. In the line above that, at the end of the line, I think that letter A doesn't belong there.
Line above that. Oh.
Where none are now and none scheduled to be planted, or none are scheduled.
That's what it said. A is a ARE. Okay. All right. And last, but certainly not least, if you're familiar with that neighborhood, there's not just Exposition Boulevard, which is just north of the existing east-west train, but there's also Exposition Place, which is something more than an alley between Degnan and 9th Avenue, kind of an alley, but kind of really wide. And there's businesses that open on it, and the townhouses, the big townhouse project, that they're there, and how they get to the train will be through the Exposition Place. And then when you get east of 9th Avenue, from 9th Avenue to 4th Avenue, it's just regular street. And again, for residents who live there, that's how they're going to be walking to the train. So why are we not considering lighting and trees, or whatever, some shapes or something on Exposition Place? So that was the other thing we added. Overall, we applaud the project. It's going to have other components designed to enhance pedestrian, bicycle, and other modalities access to and from the station. New bike lanes, the installation of solar panels above the existing, station's shade structures. They're looking at some of the existing parking lots. There's 2 or 3. There's this parking structure and then a couple of others along Exposition. Maybe take some of that space and create public restrooms, because there are no public restrooms at the station, and they are not planning to build any new public restrooms, as they're not planning to build any as part of the Crenshaw Crossing project either. So this is exciting because people do need to pee. If they come from LAX to there, and then they're going to go east, to downtown or Santa Monica, and they're changing trains. Bike sharing, parking, pedestrian scaled lighting, and so on and so forth. And so that's the draft letter. I have it at the moment signed by me. It cannot be signed by Paula because she works for West Angeles, which is on this route and also a partner in the Crenshaw Crossing itself. So she's recused. So it'll need to be signed by me.
The letter looks great. Could you go up to the top of page 2, please? With the 15% paragraph.
That's one. Historic resources. So
Maybe it's page 3. Sorry.
It is.
There you go. So the sentences, let's see here. The sentence is, despite our efforts, the city conducted a survey of the tree canopy in all neighborhood councils in the city. And unfortunately, UNNC's canopy is only 15% of what?
Yeah. Okay. First of all,
So there needs to be a denominator for the 15%.
Yeah, of the total available.
Okay. So that should be put in.
Of the total available public realm ROW space.
Great. That was my only comment. I think it's good.
And
Strong and to the point.
yeah, sorry. And despite our efforts, with me starting a sentence where I was going to say we've even done tree planting, but despite our efforts, we suck. But I don't think we need to say that. Okay.
So I move to approve the letter and forward it to the board tomorrow.
Okay, and then I need to fix the spacing now that we've done some changes.
So I guess I move to recommend to the board that it approve this letter and it be sent out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there a second? From anyone?
Right. Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? And I'm going to stop the share. What I will do is fix there may be a few words here and there tweaked so I can get the formatting to be neat. The paragraphs ending at the end of pages.
I do have a quick question. So with this, are they trying to put in trees and because if you look in front of West Angeles on Jefferson, there's a couple of spots where there's trees and there's a little bit kind of how it is around USC on Figueroa, a little bit telling you about the area. There's these little pictures, and so are they trying to add more of those in addition to the trees?
They are. It's a larger project. They're not being very, very clear as to what really is going to happen. These are saying this is, we're possibly doing this, we're possibly doing that, we're possibly doing this. So they have a long list of possibilities. One is bike lanes, so that's kind of expensive. It's restriping the streets and redoing the when you do bike lanes, you want to do some protection. So you know how Adams looks now. So they're going to need more money if they're going to do that. So this federal grant's not huge, apparently. So they want to do trees, bike lanes, maybe some crosswalks that are clearer. I don't know what the purpose of solar on the shade structures is, because I don't know how that enhances the pedestrian experience. But they do want to add pedestrian level lighting. So in other words, right now you've got tall lighting, and so they want to add lower lighting so that it's lit up better for people who need to go to and from the train at night. So again, I would hope that would get us all the way to Jefferson, perhaps, and not just halfway to Jefferson. And there's other components. So the trees seem to be the afterthought, even though there are forethought.
And the bike lane would go from that short distance?
Hang on, I'm going to try and pull up. Let's see if I can find it, the letter. Because I scanned it today. Oh, here we go. So can you see this? Is this up on the screen yet?
Yeah, now it just came up.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, trees as discussed, solar panels above the existing shade structures, and again, I don't know how that. I'm not going to object to it. I just don't know what it does. The information kiosks, bike lanes, including complex striping. So your question was for how far would they go? And I don't know the answer.
Oh, here,
It
certain
seems
bike lanes including.
Yeah, but it'd be done to have them for just a few blocks. So I don't even remember.
Yeah,
Or exposition or bike paths.
Yeah, I would not be in too much support of a bike lane on Crenshaw. I mean, Adams
Well,
is
I
also
kind of
one lane.
We should look at that, but that's not an environmental. I mean, this is a narrowly focused environmental, not project. But I think in the city's mobility and transportation element, where they identified throughout, the whole city, bike, the bike, I'm going to say paths, but the routes. I think they purposely did not put that on Crenshaw. I think we have some parallel streets that it was on because of the need to keep track. That Crenshaw is a car street on the city general plan for mobility, I think. Anyway, so also EV, they were showing, but I know they mean charging stations and or pick up drop off zones. So that'd be like for Uber. So that seems like a good idea too. I don't know that the charging stations where they would be, but anyway. And you can see what they said about the other parking lots. And then, sorry. So did I do that right? So you can see what they're showing on the, mobility hub.
Yeah.
So that's, they're not showing very much. And they're not showing, in fact, they're not even showing Obama, even though it says Obama in words out loud. And they're certainly not showing any of part of Jefferson, but they show it this one shows it goes all the way to Jefferson. But I don't know.
Okay.
Anybody else? Anybody else have any questions on this? Now that I've made a mess. I'm gonna stop the share. Okay.
Did someone say there are like little, I thought Rosie said there are little in other areas, there are little explanations of the community?
Yes, there's a few in front of
area.
Crenshaw, in front of West Angeles Church, and then there's a whole bunch if you down by USC on Figueroa.
Yeah, that's the Angels Walk. And I think there's some other Angels Walk kiosks farther south on Crenshaw, but it's not as by USC they're routine and regular. And they have, they're in front of a lot of historic landmarks. Steve, you look perplexed.
No, I'm following along. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to, basically recommend to the board that they approve this letter. If there's no further comments or questions, we should just call for a vote. And I do see we have someone new with us from earlier, Cesar Garcia Gonzalez. So I'll just quickly tell you and remind, at a UNC committee, anyone who is a stakeholder is allowed to vote. A stakeholder is someone who lives, works, attends school, is the parent of a kid who attends school, attends church, owns a property within UNNC's boundaries, and or participates in a community nonprofit charitable 501c organization with a brick and mortar address within the boundaries of UNNC. And just for everyone's knowledge, this is a definition City Council passed. This is not a UNNC definition. So anyway, if you meet any of those criteria, you may vote now, and you may choose not to vote now. Anyway, all in favor of recommending this letter for the board, please raise either your digital hand or your real hand. However, I can't see everybody, so digital hands would be really good to do if you can. Okay, so I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus me 6, and I see 2 people haven't voted. So let's take down our hands, and I'll ask if the 2 who haven't voted, are you voting no or just not voting?
Yeah, sorry, I just got in, so I missed what we're voting on.
Sure. Right. So you're gonna not vote. Hi, how are you? Yeah, appropriate to not vote because you came. We were 3/4 of the way through.
Right. So I can abstain.
Okay.
I don't know what we're voting
All
on.
right. Okay. So the motion passes. Thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda, and Steve, I guess you and I are both going to talk about this, is an update regarding the housing element CHIPS program. And this is essentially after City Planning Commission had a meeting on this topic last Thursday that started at 8:30 in the morning and ended at 5 o'clock. Yeah, it was like the whole day. And they had a couple of breaks. And I sort of was there on Zoom, but I was also at work, so I didn't hear the whole thing. But the gist of it is that the city has a deadline of next February to file paperwork with the state on updating the housing element to identify exactly where they should be putting more housing and affordable housing. So it's just a broad statement. And there were a multitude of different proposals of where to do it. The proposal that did go to the Planning Commission as recommended by the Planning Department, which was, quote, option 3, would exclude single-family zoned neighborhoods as well as HPOZs, and I don't know what other kind of exclusion. Well, I think wildfire areas. Some people say wildfire areas from the housing element requirement of allowing multifamily housing. And it may also exclude, it might have also excluded R2 and the RD zone. So in other words, putting the housing, this option 3 definitely puts the housing where it's already zoned for either larger multifamily housing and or commercial on the commercial corridors. And part of the point made was that the commercial corridors throughout the city, not just here, that there's far more commercial corridor zoning than is needed, for just commercial neighborhoods serving commercial. So we use that zoning for housing. So there are many other options available. The Planning Commission heard lots of testimony from people with lots of points of view, and ultimately opted to just approve what the Planning Department had recommended, and to let the political decisions happen at City Council and not happen at the Planning Commission. And those are the words they used in the end. So, Steve, you know a little more about the whole program, because while I listened in, I realized I didn't know, but I know that you had sent out an email and you might have been paying attention.
Oh, I didn't attend the meeting, unfortunately.
No, but I mean about the CHIPS program. It sounds like you were a little more involved with some of that conversation.
I don't know a lot more. Our concern has been that the city snuck in possible alternative solutions at the last minute that weren't shared with the community. And that our major concern was that at least from my point of view, was that the HPOZs be protected. These are areas that have already been determined by the city to have historical significance, that history of certain peoples who have lived here and continue to live here, as expressed through the architecture of those communities, should be preserved. And the concern has been that the housing element will be approved that will allow destruction of those communities. I'll add that a majority of the HPOZs are in communities that even to today, though previously were of underrepresented communities within city government and in lower economic communities currently, and that to destroy these communities would mean also to destroy the accumulation of generational wealth, which has become a significant issue across the country. People who previously did not have means to own houses have been able to buy houses in these communities and then pass down that house to other generations, which is a way of building generational wealth. If the city starts to destroy those communities, it also destroys the accumulated generational wealth. So there has to be careful consideration as to how the housing element is changed and the protection of these communities.
And I will say that
Thank you.
One of the things that was sort of a constant refrain at the public comments portion of this meeting, it wasn't about building generational wealth. This was more like a political statement because it was being made by the people who are more on the abundant housing side of things. So there's an organization, or not even one organization, there's a movement, which we could call generically abundant housing, although that's the name of an organization. But yes, in my backyard, abundant housing, there's many organizations that just want to build more housing. That the thought is if we build just a lot more housing, not concern ourselves as to whether it's affordable or not affordable, just the more housing you build, the more affordable all housing will become. So they want to, their policy goal is to open up territory for the construction of more multifamily housing. But what they made from a narrative point of view for that hearing was a over and over again comment that the R1 single family zoning is itself racist. That was the zoning designed to keep people of color from owning housing or from having a place to live. And it actually that is not what's reflected in LA's history. I mean, I'm not going to make any comments about any other city and any other part of the country, but in Los Angeles, 100 years ago, Los Angeles was the city in America where far more African Americans owned houses. Something like 30% of our black population actually owned houses here in Los Angeles, and they owned them in the wide swaths of colored yellow on the planning maps, single family zoning in South LA and Southeast LA. And to this day, those are homes still owned by people of color by and large, and they're still zoned single family. We did have restrictive covenants, and that's a different story. I mean, absolutely, that was designed to keep people of color out of the better, quote, better neighborhoods. And there was redlining. That's a different story. So I think I was sitting there just listening to the people saying that over and over and over again. And what they're basically trying to say is R1 zoning is racist, so we should get rid of R1 zoning. And
I dare them to say that to Ed, my next door neighbor, the Shiflets.
Or say it to me.
Okay,
I dare them to say that to Ed. I dare them.
I understand, but what I'm saying is it also isn't fact-based. So I always take the approach of what's the fact-based response, not the emotional response. So if this is anything that's of interest to anyone, I would encourage you to do more research on this topic. I don't know that UNNC is going to end up in a long conversation on this topic because we're very diverse ourselves, but by that I mean not just in terms of color, but in terms of opinion, on this sort of spectrum of what kind of housing, where should it be. I think we have 23 board members with 23 opinions.
So I think it's important for UNNC to have this discussion on a number of points. One is the majority of housing that's being built is not intended to house homeless people. And I think there's a misconception about what all this housing is about. And if our primary concern is to ensure that we get people off the street, which would be a very humane and dignified things and provide dignity to these people, it's not affordable housing, it's housing for the homeless, and that's not being built. As you indicated earlier, the affordable housing is not really affordable to the majority of people who are on the margin, right? Even those buildings that are so-called affordable housing that are being built under ED1 are not available to people who are on the margin. They're just not making enough money to afford those rents. And so it's really hard for me to understand what this whole concept is of building more houses or more apartment buildings is going to bring down rents. I mean, it's just, if people want to live in a physical area at a market rate, that's going to be what it is. And I think that the history of destroying communities of color in this city is something that still needs to be addressed. We in UNNC boundaries live in that history, right? The 10 freeway destroyed this community. People who live by Dodger Stadium had the same experience in Chavez Ravine. This is a repeated motif throughout the city. And so for the city then to repeat that bad history today under the rubric of creating affordable housing, to me is quite terrifying. So I would hope that the neighborhood council could weigh in on these issues, recognizing that there may be 23 opinions, but there may be a sizable majority of those people who actually have considered this issue and think similarly.
I'd also like to add, Steve, 15 different council districts, is that true?
Yeah.
Like I think you've mentioned before, Steve, that looking at the 15, where is that housing going mostly? So-called for people off the streets or affordable housing being built. I think we've done our share, and that the 10 has always said yes, but there are districts in the city that say no, and everyone ignores it.
I think that's correct. And as I indicated earlier, there are 3 community plan areas that have more than 50% of the approved ED1 buildings, right? And that's West Adams, Lamert, Baldwin Park, West Adams, Lamert, Baldwin Park, South LA, and Southeast LA account for more than 50% of the ED1 projects that have been approved to date.
And the other areas basically are saying, no, send them to those areas. Because
well, I think that may be true, but I think there's also something else at play here, which is property values. And if you, as a builder, could buy a lot that's either empty or you could destroy what's on it for less money and build the same project, then your profit margin increases. And so we know that property values have been, though they're rising in our area, have also been depressed to a greater degree than other parts of the city, making it a much more area that's much more attractive to developers.
You're probably right, but I still think about how the 10 freeway ended up where it is and where it was supposed to be.
Oh yeah. No argument.
They can definitely justify doing what they do.
Sorry,
and who they are, I don't know.
Yeah.
can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Are you guys talking about you guys like as the council not wanting to build any more E1 like affordable housing because is that what that conversation is? Or what are you guys against right now? I kind of lost. Or
well, we're not against or for anything at the moment, although there's conversation going on, but that's what I was saying. I don't know if, or this is not the governing board, this is a committee where you're having a robust discussion, but I don't know if the governing board will take up this discussion.
Okay.
What we're actually talking about, that we digressed a little, is where the city is trying to adopt on time, because they'll get punished if they don't, and turn in a document to the state, adopt on time an update to the existing, what they call housing element, which is a citywide thing,
right.
As it relates to what they call the CHIPS program. And I can't remember what CHIPS stands for, but it basically has to do with affordable housing and available lots and how to make more parcels more available, I guess.
Right.
So there's many different alternatives, but right now the option 3 alternative, which is what the City Planning Commission approved,
right,
out of option, there may be 10 options. Option 3 would exclude single parcel zones, single family, and parcels which have HPOZs, and maybe also parcels zone duplex and very low, exclude them from this project, essentially. And then we have other people arguing that single family zoning is racist, so you should include single family zones to get rid of, that is, get rid of single family zoning and have the ability to build on any lot.
Right. So if I could just butt in, one of the things, 2 of the items that we discussed earlier, before you arrived, Cesar, are buildings that are 6 to 8 stories high, built next to 1 and 2 story homes in historic designated districts.
Right. Okay. Wouldn't that, I like housing. I think it's a good idea. Like build as high as we can so we can like and I understand, like maybe I'm on the other side of this, because I think it's better, like the more supply of housing, then the cheaper rents will become. If there's like enough for everybody, then there's
Like I
no
said, we
way.
have a robust discussion with
Right.
multiple different opinions. So
Right.
you're
So
on
I'm
the
like on the other
abundant
side. So
side.
yeah. So I own property. I live close to the one on Crenshaw and Jefferson, and I think it's a great project. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be great. The more people that live around the neighborhood, the more opportunities for everybody, and the more restaurants, the more things that will happen if there's more people. So I'm all for more people as opposed to less people in the neighborhood. Okay, especially since we have so much infrastructure that can support more people, like the train, we have bike lanes, we have the bus system, and that's where I'm standing right now.
Right. But we also have longtime residents here who remain angry after 50 years of how the housing stock was removed for the 10 freeway. I mean, you've heard that tonight. So there's a racist heritage, unfortunately,
Right.
running right through UNNC.
And
it makes people sensitive to, and for among other reasons, one of the reasons it makes people hypersensitive to any proposal that would take away any more, because we've had so much taken away, and it was based on racism. I mean, this is the bottom line. So, I mean, obviously, I'm saying that as a white person, but I'm also a historian, so I've seen I've read it, I've seen it, I've written about it, and a lot of decisions were based on racism. So when I hear someone, me personally, when I hear someone citing something that's the opposite, it's like white is black, tall is short, because the R1 zoning here in Los Angeles was not the thing that was racist. The racial restricted covenants was the thing that was racist. The 10 freeway going through neighborhoods that were wealthy African Americans was racist. And I will say Lafayette Square is raising the same issues now because of the proposal, unrelated to this discussion, but the proposal to put the northern extension of the Crenshaw line. I don't think we realized, we thought it was going up Crenshaw, but it's going under Lafayette Square, and homeowners there have just recently gotten letters from Metro saying that they might be eminent domaining their homes to make way for the subway. And
old story, definite old story. We all know.
And they're saying, great, undo another historically African American neighborhood. So it's a sensitive issue. And so that's what I'm saying. It's like sometimes difficult, as Steve said, sometimes difficult conversations have to happen, and maybe they will, but I don't know if if UNNC is going to have the time. This is such a fast timeline. I don't know if we can have that conversation in conjunction with a timeline that this Housing Element CHIPS program has.
So, remember to have the conversation that talks about how many amenities have been removed from the community and placed in areas away from the community. We had a lot, and Laura, you knew the area. If you lived here, there were many amenities in the West Adams area. Now you have to drive Culver City, drive north to West LA to take kids to participate in programs, athletic programs where parks were providing. We're fighting to make sure that our local park provides those opportunities, because they weren't giving them to us.
Yeah, and Cesar, it's true. I mean, when I moved here 40-some years ago, there weren't all the great restaurants there are now. So obviously we've got, that amenity, but there's been so many amenities removed, like Donna said. So like my bank, I mean, how many times do I have to switch branches because they keep closing branches of the bank? And again, even back to that Crenshaw Northern line, they're also talking about buying eminent domaining Midtown Plaza, where the Ralphs is. I mean, basically demolishing the Ralphs.
AAA is closing. You know that, don't you?
Who is what? Oh, AAA in Crenshaw. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I go to AAA personally, but anyway.
But still, just having it local for
Yes.
those who want to go there. I go to the one over there. I love the building. I agree.
Right. Okay. Anyway, we're digressing again.
Right.
I think what my point is proven. I think if we're going to have this discussion, we really need to agenda it more properly, because what's on the agenda just says housing element chips program. So I think if we're going to have a more in-depth, we're going to have to think about it, how we're going to do this. And again, what the planning commission did was declare it a political decision. I mean, they actually use those words and said it's going to council as a political decision. We're just going to accept the planning department recommendation. So that's where we're at. Steve, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a final point from me, which is to note for new people that this committee and this neighborhood council has always supported affordable housing.
Well,
Always.
not just affordable.
The issue is not about supporting affordable housing, right? The issue is ensuring that the housing that's built are good neighbors and respectful of the people who are already here. And that when you already have one of the largest population densities in the city and county, then building even more housing maybe should be considered in areas of the city with less population density. And building large buildings on significant commercial corridors is preferable to building them in the middle of residential neighborhoods that then destroy the existing housing stock, make them less valuable, and diminish the generational wealth that's been attempted to accrue. So you have to look at the full impact and dynamic of where you're building and what you're building, rather than just have a wholesale policy that says build anywhere indiscriminately.
Right. So, and there's also, my favorite thing of the week, just because of many challenges, is that's, the serenity prayer, right? God grant me the courage to change the things I can, the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. So we are going to have tall buildings on our corridors. We just are. We may not have them tomorrow, but we want to have them where the community is brought along as a in a collaborative way. I mean, we have had some really good projects and some under construction right now that are the result of a major community collaboration, where we have meetings in advance and design tweaks, and they're better projects for it. And so, but I think the era of building 2-story duplexes is not around. So I've learned to have a little serenity on this. That's all I'm trying to say. But I'm also trying to say it's 8:16, and we should move on to the next item, unless there's anything more. Unless I see Marina in the background. The actual Marina is here.
Talk about parking at all?
Yeah, here we go. Anyway, so if we can move on to the next item, and that's just simply follow up to previous cases, ENS and old business. I'm going to make a quick announcement, but I'm recused. So if you end up needing a discussion, I got to walk out of the room, which is hard since I'm the Zoom host. 1848 South Gramercy, which was from yesterday, was continued again, and it's going to be heard on October 15. I live on that block within 500 feet, so I think UNNC has taken a position, and I'm part of that. I am one of the appellants, so that's why I'm recused also. But essentially, just for everyone to know, it's October 15th now instead of yesterday. And is there anybody else who has any other updates or follow-ups to previous cases, ENS or business of any sort?
Just in regards to the continuance, it's the same bat time, same bat channel.
Yes, it's at Tuesday, October 15th, 2 p.m.
2
City
p.m.
Council Chambers, Planning and Land Use Management.
Okay.
So
am I going to have to repeat myself?
Everybody has to do over.
Yay.
Yay. It's a do-over. Yes.
Hooray.
It's a do-over. But this time it won't, it should be the end of it. This should be the end of the road. You know, I mean, there should not be any more continuances. I don't know if it's the end of the road, but it's, okay. And anything else? Okay, well, we get to adjourn then. So,
Thank you.
you are welcome. And I hope nobody, of course, if you're here, it means you didn't try. I hope nobody tried to get into South Seasons because, again, it's unexpectedly locked up tight. So I ran back to my work desk to run this meeting. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Good night.
Night.